everyone. Thank you all for being here today with us. I'm Manuela, or you can call me by Manu. I'm product manager at payments team at VTEX. And now we are here to talk a bit about the user agent reduction and its impact on payments flows. I'd like to welcome Sarino and Elena, who are here today. Thank you all for participating here in this webinar and giving visibility about this important change in the web today. Sarino is web ecosystem consultant at Google, and Elena is strategic partner development. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Manu.
Thank you.
So our goal today is to give visibility for payments and anti-fraud partners about this change. And we're going to go today in our agenda about a quick introduction around user agents. What is user agents? Why it's being reduced with the Google team. After that, we're going to have an overview about the user agent reduction analysis that we perform at VTEX, because after we had visibility about these changes going to happen, and we started to perform an analysis in our module to understand if this could impact payment authorization flows or any other flows that happening related to payments. After that, we're going to have some time for any questions that might happen during this presentation, and that's it. Now I'm going to pass the stage to Elena to start the presentation around the user agent reduction. And that's it. With you, Elena.
Thank you, Manu. Hi, everyone. My name is Elena. I work on the product partnerships team at Google supporting Chrome. Our goal is to help build great websites and make the experience work for everyone, everywhere. Today, we'll talk about the Privacy Sandbox initiative, including our commitments around working with the ecosystem to develop privacy-preserving technologies. Then, we will update you on the user agent reduction and explain its impact on payments. The Privacy Sandbox is an initiative to develop a new generation of technologies that can replace the tracking primitives that are on the web today, while at the same time supporting a healthy, sustainable ecosystem. And why is Google Chrome focusing on this now? Over 80% of consumers right now feel that this trade-off we've had for so long on the web of free services in exchange for information is no longer optimal. And the risks of data sharing are greater than the benefit that they're getting. That's why we believe that the web needs to evolve to address users' increasing expectations on how their data and privacy are treated on the web. This includes the development of purpose-built APIs to support several capabilities. Once these new APIs are in place, we'll make sure developers have time to adopt them so that we can safely phase out support for third-party cookies in Chrome. At the same time, we'll continue our work to mitigate other types of tracking, so cross-site tracking doesn't simply shift from third-party cookies to more covert methods. The Privacy Sandbox is a collaborative initiative. We're engaging directly with developers to get their feedback so we can design the APIs in the open. It's also about balance, because if we restrict general purpose technologies like third-party cookies without having effective alternatives, we run the risk of encouraging new and more invasive tracking methods that people are unaware of and have no control over, such as fingerprinting. And third, it's about finding solutions for both privacy and a thriving web ecosystem, which requires multiple steps and phases. The technologies we've been developing for the Privacy Sandbox cover a wide range of use cases to improve user privacy, from federated logging to fraud detection and API address privacy. These proposals offered by Chrome are being refined with community input and incubated in public forums alongside other community proposals. We encourage companies to spend some time understanding the full scope of the initiative at privacysandbox.com, since there may be implications that aren't initially obvious or top of mind to you. For today's conversation, we'll focus on the user agent reduction, and I'll hand it over to Sarino to explain it in detail. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarino, and I'm a web ecosystem consultant here at Google, and I'm working on the Privacy Sandbox. I will go now into more details about what the user agent reduction will be about, and also the user agent client hints API. So, as we know, today, this is what the user agent string looks like when we look at it in the browser. It includes a lot of information about the user, such as the device model, the platform, the version, the browser brand, and the browser's version as well. So what is happening in Chrome? There are two main things that are happening. Number one, it will be the freezing and the reduction of the user agent string. So that string we saw before is going to contain less information that it is containing at the moment. It will provide only a few default data points that we will see later. And this is going to be replaced by the new API. We're calling the user agent client hints API. It will be a new way for developers to request in a more active way this data from the user agent. Why is Chrome doing this? Well, there are two main reasons. Number one, the user agent, as it is today, exposes a lot of identifiable data about the user on every request to the browser. So it is being used as a mechanism for cover tracking. In addition to this, it's sometimes painful to parse the data from the string. It requires some custom logic, and sometimes which is prone to causing bugs in the code. So with the new user agent client hints API and the user agent reduction, we are limiting the data to a few default client hints, but you will still have the information available if you need it, but you will need to actively request it. And this data will now come in, thanks to this new API, it will come in a more structured way with structure headers. So it reduces the need to parse a string. So back again to the string, how it looks now today. After the reduction, it's going to look like this, right? So the data points that are on green are going to continue to be updated, and the ones in red will be frozen. So they will always contain these constant values that we see in the screen. This will be mainly the platform version, the device model, and the browser minor version. So moving on to the user agent client hints API, the way this will look like is if we see on the right side of the slide, we have a few HTTP headers that we can use to on our server side to request for the hints that we need. And the first three that we see on the top are the ones that will come by default. So the browser brand and the major version, a mobile indicator, whether it's a mobile device or not, and the platform or the operating system. This will always be sent. These headers will always be sent by default. And then we have additional hints that we see on the lower part that we can request if we need them. There's also a JavaScript API that can be used to request these hints actively on the front end. And the only change will be, we will see later a more detailed example of the code, but the change is at the moment you would request the user agent by using navigator.userAgent, but with the new API you will use navigator.userAgent data. I'll show, as I said, a more detailed example later on. Timelines. When are all these changes happening? Well, the API, the user agent client hints API, it's already available in Chrome for review, to test, and to migrate. However, the user string, agent string reduction is going to happen in 3 phases, and the first phase is going to happen in April, so this month, later this month. The second phase will happen on October this year, and the last phase will happen in February next year. So now in April, the main change that will happen is that the minor version of the browser will be frozen in the user agent string. So if we go back to what the user agent that I showed before, that means now the minor version will always look like zeros, these 3 zeros that we have there. This is what's happening later in April. Then in October, the user agent will be reduced fully, so it will be completely reduced, but only on desktop devices. And then in February, it will be reduced also in mobile devices. Okay, now I'll focus now on the key differences of these changes versus the user agent as we have it today. So there are 3 main key differences that we need to be aware of. Number 1 is that the data will be reduced to a few default hints. I already showed an example of this. Now only the browser brand, the major version, and a mobile indicator will be provided by default, and then the rest of the hints can be requested as needed. Number 2, a second big difference is that you may need to delegate the permissions in cases where you have an embedded site. I will show you a more detailed example of what this looks like. And the third one is that we're introducing a new protocol called Grease that will randomize some of the values that are sent on the browser brand. I'll also show a more specific example now. So going a bit deeper in these 3 differences. So this is the first one. Only the default data the default hints will be sent. If we see on the left side today, this is how it works today. So on every request from the browser, all these hints in blue are sent. In the future or later on when the user agent is frozen, now just these 3 hints will be sent on every request, the ones in blue, and if you want to, if you need the other hints, you can request them actively. The second difference, what I was talking about, delegation of the permissions, this is only in very specific cases. Let's say your website is example.com and you have an embedded site, let's say analytics.com, and analytics.com needs to know the model of the device, for example. You would need to send an additional HTTP header with this permission policy, as we see in this example in the middle line, where you specify which hints you are allowing analytics.com to read. And once you do that, analytics.com will be able to get the device model. One note on this is only required for HTTP headers. If your using the JavaScript API, it is not going to be required. And then the third main difference is about the randomized values or the GREASE protocol. This will affect the browser brand and major version. And what this means is that sometimes if you request this value, sometimes it can be returned in a different order, or it could include an arbitrary value, as we see here in example number 3. It includes a random value that says not browser, and then this is done to prevent kind of assumptions made by some codes in order to detect the browser and the version that could lead in the future for some code to break. Okay, now I will show quickly how it works in both the HTTP headers for the server side or the JavaScript API on the front end. If you're using the user agent client hints API on your server side, you will likely be needing to check the HTTP headers. So let's say, for example, you have your site, and then a user goes and a request is made to the server. If you see in the first box on the top, the default hints are sent every time. And then the server will receive them. You can read them and do whatever you need if you need to use this information. If you need to request more, like we see, then on the server side, you will send an additional HTTP header called accept.ch, and there you will include for the values the hints that you need. So in this case, in this example, we see that we are requesting the platform version and the model, and then on the following request, those additional hints will be also sent to the server. Now the JavaScript API for the front end, as I mentioned before, you would need to use the navigator.userAgentData code, and then here in this example, you see we're requesting the brands, and this will return, as we can see here in this example, an output in this format. You can ask as well for example, as we see in the line below, the mobile indicator which will return true or false if it's a mobile device or not. And then if you need to request the additional hints, the ones that are not by default, you can do so with code as shown in this example, and then you can get the data like the model, the architecture, the operating system, and the full version of the browser. Okay, so that was it. Now just to recap some of the main highlights. The user agent client hints API is now live in Chrome, stable. It's ready for reviewing, testing, and migration. You can use, depending on your needs, this API. You can access the user agent client hints via HTTP headers on your server side or via JavaScript on your front end. And the first phase of the user agent reduction, which will freeze the minor version of the browser, is happening later this month in April with Chrome 101. As suggested next steps, I would say that start by auditing your code. Are you using the user agent? Where do you use it? Is it on your front end, on your back end? Then scope your use case, determine if you can use the new user agent client hints API for your use case, or if you rely on some third parties or vendors for your site, make sure you also ask them to check if they may need to audit their code or migrate to the new API. Some additional resources for more information about the user agent client hints. Check the articles on web.dev. There's a couple of useful articles, one with a general overview and one with some migration strategies. And then there's also the explainer on GitHub, which covers also all the details about the API. Privacy Sandbox resources as well, privacysandbox.com, developer.chrome.com, and web.dev for more general information about the Privacy Sandbox. If you have any feedback about the APIs, you can raise an issue on GitHub, or you can email us at that direction as well. Thank you very much. I'll now hand over to Manu.
Hello, everyone. Sarino and Elena, thanks a lot for the detailed presentation. We were able to have a lot of visibility around this change and the user agent reduction. So now I'm going to go over the analysis that we performed in payments team here at VTEX after we got to know about this change. I already presented myself. Gabriel Tiburcio is software engineer here at VTEX. He will be participating asynchronously via a video that we are going to show by the end of the presentation. So we're going to cover a few topics now. We're going to give a little bit of an introduction of how it all started, how we got to know about this, about the user agent reduction, and when we got to know what was the plan that we come up to mitigate any impact and make sure that our payment authorization flows wouldn't be impacted. We're going to go over the execution part of this plan, how it all happened, and the results that we had after this analysis. And in the end, we're going to present a few steps on how can each payment partner or anti-fraud partner perform tests in the VTEX platform to make sure that this reduction won't be impacting each way that each payment provider executes the authorization process in a more independent way. So how it all started. Basically, Google team give visibility to us via our engineering team. And one of the first modules at VTEX that we thought, okay, this might be impacting, and this module was payments, because payments deals with information about the session of the user and uses this information to authorize or capture a specific payment. So we needed this information to for this process of authorization. And one of the first questions that we had was, okay, do we use this specific information that we are seeing that is being reduced related to the user agents? And this was on the starting point. And if so, how do we use it? And I'm part of the payment team, as I was mentioning, and we are part of a more specific squad called payments integrations, and we take care of the journey of how payment partners and anti-fraud partners integrate with VTEX. And they do so by using an integration protocol. So we have two integration protocols. We have one for payment providers and anti-fraud providers. So this way, the communication between VTEX platform and the payment provider is standardized. And then we check those information. So, okay, we send an information that is the device fingerprint. And we understood that in device fingerprint, we used the user agent information. So we started to map the problem a little bit, this scenario a little bit better, to understand what was the journey that this device fingerprint of the shopper made throughout the order flow. And we identified 4 main phases of this device fingerprint. We have a first phase of the creation of this fingerprint. We have a second phase where this fingerprint is shared with VTEX payments module. And we have a third phase where we share this information with the payment and anti-fraud providers so they can perform the analysis. and then a fourth phase of first purchase. So after the transaction is all good and was authorized and captured. And we started to map in each of those phases which were the questions that we had, which were the pain points that we had identified, so we could go over through these questions and pain points in a later phase. So this is when we started to plan on how we would go over this initiative. So we divided in three main parts. One of it was investigation, so perform a more technical analysis regarding the use of this information and how we share this information with our partners. A second phase of aligning with other teams. In this initiative, there was a lot of work regarding alignments. We had a lot of talks with the Google team in these few months, with both internal teams, with other external teams, to make sure that we have all the information needed regarding all of this ecosystem. And after that, execute any changes needed that we might have encountered in the investigation phase. So going over the execution part, in the technical analysis part, in the investigation phase, we wanted to answer three main questions. We wanted to understand in more details what is changing in the user agent, if do we need to adapt anything in our module or in the integration protocols, so this information is passed with no failures, with no problems. And a third question regarding how can we simulate the scenario of the user agent reduced, so we could perform end-to-end tests of purchases considering this user agent already reduced. So these were the three main questions. Regarding the alignment with other teams, we had a few talks with checkout team and analytics team internally, so we could give visibility about this change to them. We also talked with external teams, as I was saying, a lot of conversation with Google, so they could give visibility about the timelines and about what is changing and why it's changing, the importance of this change. We also had some talks with ClearSale and Mercado Pago, so we could have a better idea in the discovery phase of the problem, how payment and anti-fraud providers use this information. And in the third point, during this process of alignment, we understood that we needed to have a broader communication for payment providers and anti-fraud providers that are partners from VTEX about this change, because each payment and anti-fraud provider is going to have differences in the way that they treat each transaction. So it's important to give visibility, and each of these partners assess these risks internally. Regarding the third phase of execution, we haven't identified any change needed in our platform, like a new development. So our platform is adjusted. So there was no change needed in the site. So the way that this information was reduced, it didn't impact in the flows related to the order as a whole. But I identified that it's really important that we let our partners know about this change, so each of them can assess internally. So these were the results. We performed end-to-end tests with the methodology that we're going to talk a bit in more details later. And we, after performing those tests with both tests providers and also in production providers such as ClearSale, we have identified that the user agent reduction didn't impact the score of the transaction. We have added a few scenarios of varying the value of the payment and a few other scenarios that we're going to be giving more details, and this didn't impact the score. But it's important to say that it can vary from provider to provider. So that's why it's another insight that we had, is that super important to scaling this testing part to the partners. So this is one of the goals of being here today. So how can each partner test this more independently? And regarding this third question, we understood that the best way that we could go was to simulate the user agent reduced by using Chrome flags. We used a specific flag that is called reduce user agent request header, and this can be enabled or disabled. So we enabled in a few scenarios and disabled in other scenarios to compare what is the behavior of the transaction in these two moments. So now we're going to go over step by step of how an example test of this scenario can happen. And this is a video from Tiburcio that he sent to us, and I'm going to be showing to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabriel from the payments team. As Manu was saying, I'm going to do a quick demo about how we conduct our testing here to test if Chrome's user agent reduction would impact our payments flow. So basically, we need to understand a little bit about how fingerprint creation works at VTEX. So VTEX checkout relies on a variable called window.vtex.deviceFingerprint. Fingerprint. It usually is not set, but we can put anything we want here, and this value will be passed along to our payment providers and anti-fraud providers to be used as a fingerprint feature. So basically, I have here a tutorial in our help page that uses an example ClearSale V3 anti-fraud provider. So the way we use this is each partner of us has their own script to generate fingerprints, but basically they are injected by Google Tag Manager. Since we are only testing, we can copy paste this at the console, and we will have a fingerprint available for us. Before we proceed with placing our order, we need to configure a few things in our admin. So here at the payments module in settings, we need basically three things. So we need a payment provider gateway affiliation, an anti-fraud provider gateway affiliation, and a payment condition. So you should have access to your gateway affiliations in your test stores. Here I have a test payment condition for processing Visa, which use our test providers. So this allow me to place any order I want. So basically with this, I can place my order. I will use my work email here. It will detect I already have my data available. So I will choose Visa and I can put any security code here because those are test affiliations. It will let me place my order. Just a quick seconds for this to finish. And then my order is placed. So talking a little bit about the use case we plan with those testings, basically enabling user agent reduction option on Chrome settings and testing the purchase flow to see if this has any effect in the score our anti-fraud provider generates for us, and also varying the purchase values, the total values, and see how this affects and if this affects our anti-fraud partner score, because we saw that purchase value was one of the variables that made our score vary. But we don't want this to vary with user agent reduction enabled or disabled. So after having those tests in mind, we can come to the transactions page here at the payments module again, and we will have those transactions generated. We can click here in one of them and we can search for score. So basically this is the response we got from our anti-fraud provider, and this is the score they gave us with the information we provided. So the idea of those tests is so that if we enable or disable our user agent reduction at Chrome's, this score should not vary solely because of that. So that's it. That's checking the results, checking the score. And please don't hesitate on reaching us if you need any assistance or support or any doubts about this process. Thank you.
Just presenting the team that was more closely involved in this initiative from VTEX. We had Gabriel, as we already presented, Tiburcio, a software engineer in the payments integration team, and also have Rafael Robalo. He's the engineer manager in the team, and he was also present in the process of communicating with other engineering teams internally. And that was it. Now we're going to go over the Q&A session. If we have any questions, I believe we don't have any questions in the chat. So I believe that's it. Sarino, Elena, would you like to add anything else to close this session? And thanks again for your presence here.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Manu.
Thank you. And that's it. Have a great day and bye-bye, everyone.